There is so much to discuss, so much going on. Going back to a discussion we were having 45 minutes ago, DMT, which is a naturally occurring chemical in the brain associated with dreaming, associated with these out-of-body experiences, because I've read up on it as well. And I was telling the story. And, folks, the government believes us. We're going to get General Stubblebine, a 3-star general, back on. We're lining him up because George Clooney's making a movie about him with the writer that wrote a book about me in Bohemian Grove, John Ronson. Jack Black's making a movie about that, making fun of me and others, called Them. But this is a separate book, The Men Who Stare at Goats. And I've had Stubblebine on, and he believes that he can astrally project. This is a former Special Forces commander of all Special Forces. They train the Special Forces to do this. I've had Special Forces on the show. I never get into weird stuff like that, except that the government believes it, and they've experimented with DMT and other hallucinogens and other chemicals that are naturally in the body, or things that trigger those natural things. That's all drugs do, is trigger other things in your body. You know me, I'm a teetotaler, folks, and Joe knows that too, because I'm on my own drugs, my own endorphins. Every day is a trip for me, you know, being alive in this incredible reality. But I've had many dreams, and I don't talk about most of my dreams, kind of like that Fleetwood Mac, you know, the crystal visions. I keep my visions to myself. But over and over again, I've had a dream, say, when I'm 10, about on a golf course in front of my parents' house, they're going to build a house there. And, you know, I pictured myself walking in, looking out at, you know, in a window at night, and I would have the dream recurring. Then years later, they built a house there, and me and friends as teenagers went in and looked out that very window on that golf course, and a dog I saw in the dream run across the golf course, came running across. It was the exact same thing. This wasn't like deja vu, where I told people about this dream. But I've had dreams where I was mugged, and the very guy, the very shirt. And these dreams are always very upsetting, is how I know it's real and going to come true. But Joe wanted to get back into that with DMT experiences. Joe?
Well, first of all, the Army Research Group has known about DMT since the 60s. The way Terence McKenna found out about DMT is he had a friend who was a scientist who was working for the Army Research Group, and this guy brought home some DMT, and he gave it to Terence to try, and it was something that they were experimenting with. They were trying to figure out what it is. So they've known about it for a long time. The fact that they've been able to keep this under wraps is really crazy. The fact that they've been able to keep this substance a secret. I mean, if it was a plot in a movie, you would never believe that they'd be able to keep this a secret. If there was a plot in a movie, and in the movie there was a powder that existed, this substance, this compound, that existed in almost everything. It exists in all these different kinds of plants, and people make it in their own bodies, and this substance allows you to have essentially an experience where you're communicating with something above reality, something above you, whether it's a god or whether it's angels or whether it's some sort of an interdimensional.
But that's it, Joe. I'm a pretty secular mainline guy. I'm not. I've had experiences I won't say on air because they'd make fun of me, and a lot more bizarre than that. And I mean, this stuff is real. I told people, man, I had this upsetting dream. It's like those dreams I have that come true. I told people about it, and then it happened.
Well, Alex, I don't think it's crazy. What I'm saying is that we only think it's crazy because we can't do it every day. But if you think about the things that we can do every day, just this, look at what we're doing right here. Is being able to predict an event any crazier than the idea that you and I are communicating right now in real time through the air across the world? I mean, that's nuts.
No, you're in L.A., I'm in Austin, the network's in Minnesota, the satellites are going around the Earth.
Yeah, the ability to predict the future is no crazier than that. That's just as crazy. It's just the ability to predict the future, the ability to see reality from other angles, whether it's premonitions, all that stuff is just, we just can't do it all the time.
Stay there. We're going to talk behind the scenes right now. Here we go. Sorry to interrupt, Joe. You know about these dumb ads. You're on TV and everything else.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Well, they're great ads. Actually, it's how we operate. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I hear you, buddy.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right about... magic. It's what Arthur C. Clarke said. He said 100 years ago, the technologies we have now would have been indistinguishable from magic.
Right, exactly.
Keep talking about it. Go ahead.
Absolutely. talk about it now because we're on the internet, right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to just continue because the ad cut you off, but let's just continue because this will be, much bigger later on the web itself.
Well, it's very possible that there's an infinite number of things that we can't perceive. And the way I describe it is, and I want to talk about this, I would like to talk about this on the radio because it's a really big point. And the point is that there's a thing that I like to call the fart principle, and it's a goofy way of describing it.
All right, well, if the fart principle's so key, let's talk about it after we come out to the main audience. But going back, just some behind-the-scenes stuff, how's your life going? Is Joe Rogan happy with life?
Joe Rogan's happy as can be, man, although I don't like talking about myself like that. I'm doing the Roy Jones Jr. talking about myself in the third person. But, no, I'm happy as can be, man. You know what? I think I just try to live my life and have as much fun as possible, be as nice to people as possible, have a bunch of good friends and good experiences, and pursue my interests. And I think that if you do that, you're going to have a happy life. I think that one of the keys to having a happy life is what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about the Illuminati and all these people in control of the world, that they can't possibly be happy because they're not being nice to people.
Oh, no, none of them are.
No, they've got to be miserable. How could you not be? You're causing hundreds of thousands of people to die unnecessary deaths and suffer, and poor soldiers to come back from this horrible war and be disfigured and just ruined and have to struggle to get their medical benefits. I mean, it's an amazing thing. You'd have to be incredibly sick to live your life through that. There's no way you could actually be happy doing what you're doing. There's no way.
I agree with you.
I mean, I think if there's anything that's going to save the world, it's that realization. But then it goes back to what we were talking about before. Is it possible to enlighten a psychopath? Is it possible to enlighten?
I think it is, to show them that even if they're mentally don't care about others and are really sadistic psychopaths, the worst type, and you've got sociopath psychopaths and sadistic sociopaths, to explain to them that tearing up the world ends up coming back on them.
Yeah, maybe, but they don't see it every day because I have a feeling that a lot of karma is how you feel about things. And if you don't feel bad about what you're doing, I don't necessarily think it comes back to you. It doesn't come back to you as much. I mean, look at Bush. That guy's old, man. He's been around a long time. He's been screwing over people forever. But he's fine. Look at his dad, Herbert Walker Bush. He's fine, too. Nothing wrong with him. He's like a normal old dude.
Here we go.
Okay.
The Genesis Communications Radio Network proudly presents The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're here live. We had Jesse Ventura for you last week, Tommy Chung for you last week. We're going to have Tommy Chung and Cheech reunite. They just got back together last week for the first time in more than 20 years, they say, on this show, coming up in about 2 weeks. Got some other big guests lined up during the week I'm not going to tell you about. Joe Rogan, host of Ultimate Fighting, fighting champion in his own right, starred in a whole bunch of top TV shows. I mean, the list goes on and on. JoeRogan.net, got a lot of great comedy DVDs and CDs out there available. Find out more just by Googling Joe Rogan or going to JoeRogan.net. Look, I know I've got 20-something phone calls here. The phone system's completely filled up, which it always does. I don't know how we're going to get to everybody, but we'll go to those in a few minutes with Joe Rogan. I don't want to burn him out coming on the show, but I'm really enjoying this. I want to have him back up soon. He's already been with us 2 hours. Joe, we were talking in the behind the scenes. You said what you call the fart principle, excuse your French, is so important that you wanted to say it to the full audience. So tell us about the methane gas principle.
Well, this is what it means. It's a silly name, but the reason why I call it that is because, what the idea behind it is if you look at reality and how you perceive reality, we look through our eyes, we smell through our nose, we hear things. Well, if somebody farted around you and you couldn't smell, if you didn't hear it, you'd have no idea that anything was going on. If you didn't have a sense of smell, there'd be something invisible that you would not be able to detect, and you'd be just sitting in someone's stink and not even knowing about it, right? How do we know that there aren't an infinite number of things that we can't detect, and we can't even imagine because we just don't have the sensitivity to it?
Well, the mathematical equations
easily be.
Well, the mathematical equations show that, Joe. It shows there are other dimensions all around us.
Yes, absolutely. sure. I mean, I've heard that. I don't really understand it. I can't really follow the logic of it. I'm not a mathematician. But from what I understand, when you hear these guys talking about quantum physics and things, that they actually can sort of mathematically show that it's possible for there to be 11 different dimensions. But what I'm saying is, how do you know it's not infinite? How do you know that everything is not infinite? That what we're existing in is a very narrow bandwidth of, several dimensions we can see and touch and hear. And how do we know that there's not an infinite number of other possibilities that our imagination can't even perceive?
Well, radio waves are invisible. TV waves are invisible.
Exactly.
Cell phone waves are invisible.
All of that. There could be billions of different types of things like that are invisible. It's very possible.
Well, let me go back. 80-year-old German quantum mechanics expert said that if Saturn is a gas giant, its mass should express some seventh or eighth dimensional vortex, and that on its poles it would have giant ice hexagons. And then when Voyager flew over the top, it had a perfect hexagon on the top. And then they said it will express on a vortex, and it ended up expressing. I mean, that's amazing.